Okay, so as I said, just said, guys, everybody, welcome to the AFC Business, what's now becoming regular business webinars. Welcome, as I said already, very, very big welcome to the CEO of Vitality UK, that is Neville Kupowicz, and Neville will be talking to us later on. And we're also, as well as the team from AFC Bournemouth, give us a wave, guys, to actually, it's great to see you there. We're also joined, I'm really proud and pleased to have Jeff Mostyn, who's the chairman of AFC Bournemouth, who's with us this morning. Good morning to you, Jeff. It's great to see you. And I'll be asking Jeff just to say a few words, give us a bit of an update in terms of the club, in terms of where we are in a few moments. So just a quick reminder, keep yourselves on mute. We are recording. And if you've got any questions that you'd like to ask Neville after his presentation, then please use the chat function. And what will happen, those questions will come through to me. And we'll be able to then facilitate a Q&A with Neville at the end of the presentation. A couple other things. We normally do a business card draw, which is difficult when you're doing it online. So we will be doing a draw, but which just with those of you who've attended to win a signed football. Last time, Sarah Rickson from Summers Insurance, she won the signed football. So congratulations to Sarah. So you've got an opportunity today to actually win that. Do nothing more than you've attended, so you'll be going into the draw for that. So I think, without further ado, it's a great pleasure to just ask Jeff Mostyn, who's the chairman of AFC Bournemouth, just to say a few words to us about the club and where we are and some of the challenges and plans going forward. Jeff, over to you. It's great to have you with us this morning.
Thank you so much, Paul, and welcome everybody. And if I could start off by just thanking all my colleagues at AFC Bournemouth for facilitating this event today. There's always a lot of hard work and effort that goes into this. And I think especially during these unprecedented times to actually, have and continue to have so much enthusiasm for our business club. I'm really thrilled and can't thank you all enough. And also for everybody that's in attendance today, thank you for your continued support at these events. I like to think that it just takes you away from the norm of talking and agreeing with all the decisions you make while you're locked down by yourself. I think most people have made decisions and nobody argues with them in isolation. So it's probably a good way to take the business forward. From my perspective, literally it's been 3 months of probably the most intense work of my life, along with our Chief Executive, Neil Blake, trying to represent the club in the best possible way at the Premier League meetings. First and foremost, all the 20 clubs have a self-interest, which is understandable. So we need to make sure that everything that is agreed is to the benefit of AFC Bournemouth as well as our 19 peers. And I think that the clubs can be really proud of the way that we've, dealt with this unprecedented situation. And of course, the very first Premier League games will kick off on Wednesday next week. And on Saturday, a week on Saturday, we'll be hosting Crystal Palace for the restart. So we have a mini league of 9 games in which to ensure that we continue to enjoy our place at football's top table, the Premier League. And I'm thrilled that each and everybody here today will be able to see all the games live across various media television organisations. The first one, the BBC, will be the BBC's very first Premier League game. And I think they're predicting the biggest attendance in football history. Some predict it to be even bigger than the royal wedding. I have to say, I'd still prefer to see Crystal Palace versus Bournemouth. But I love the Royals. So without more ado, it's a real, an honour and a privilege for me today to listen to the Chief Executive of Vitality, Neville. First and foremost, Neville, I'm honoured to have you as a friend. And I think of equal importance to have you as a partner at the football club. We have many people that we call sponsors. I take Vitality a step further. They are, and I've always said, a partner not a sponsor. Although we do like the sponsorship side of our partnership as well. That goes without saying. I think that the fact that our relationship is always at the forefront of everybody's attention. It's the first thing they see when they enter the stadium, you know, your vibrant sign. And I think that the relationship has developed into, I've called it a commercial marriage made in heaven. What Vitality stands for, we could not ask for a better partner. You know, you're the whole raison d'etre of the company, and I'm sure we're going to hear more about that today, is the most progressive in the health industry. How you treat your customers is second to none. And I think there's something for everybody to learn from that today. And it's a real honor for me to actually be, you know, part of this event today and to welcome you in addition to the welcome you've received from Paul. Finally, I'd like to just ask you to take a keen look on Saturday. We will have a very, very interesting announcement timed at 7:45 p.m., which will coincide with our kickoff a week on Saturday. So I can't give you any more clues for fear of being put on mute forever. But it will be of great interest to everybody on this event today. So without more ado, back to you, Paul, and enjoy this webinar. I'm sure that we'll all have an awful lot to gain.
Thank you so much, Jeff. If ever there was a man who could hold you in suspense, it's a certain Mr. Jeff Mostyn. That was brilliantly done. You now have a whole bunch of people on here who will be glued to 7:45, my friend. Well done. It is a genuine pleasure and privilege to introduce Neville Kipowitz, who is the CEO of Vitality UK. And as Jeff says, football, with all of its community links, simply couldn't exist and operate without the foresight and support of organisations such as Vitality. And I would add my thanks, not just from the football perspective, but from Bournemouth and the wider conurbation area in terms of the way that Vitality operate and support community activities and support the wider community in the BCP conurbation. As we navigate and try and formulate what we do in business, both having had the experience of the past 10, 11 weeks, and going forward in whatever, and the cliche alert here, the new norm becomes, it's becoming more and more and more apparent that the if you like, the collateral advantage that we have are our people. Innumerable studies have gone through whereby well-being and the way in which organizations interact and engage with their employees pretty much equates into a competitive advantage. And going forward, where everything is different, and we've kind of hungering, I think, for that social interaction and dealing with people. Our colleagues and employees of that organisation, their well-being, their productivity, etc., is going to become hugely important, not just in the recovery, but in terms of how our business actually go forward. Having spoken to Neville, Vitality UK have done some really, really interesting things, both with their people and their colleagues that they work with, but also with their customers too. And we're going to hear a little bit about that. So again, get your questions ready, put them through to on the chat function, and we'll have a Q&A at the end. But really, it gives me great pleasure to introduce and hand over the microphone to Neville Kipowitz, who is the CEO of Vitality UK. Neville, over to you.
Thank you, Paul. I'm just going to share my screen and hopefully everybody can see the presentation. Firstly, just thank you for inviting me. It truly is a privilege to address you. Just to echo what Jeff said, we view our relationship with Bournemouth and AFC Bournemouth much more as a partnership. For those of you, I'm sure you are aware, but we house close to 1,000 of our staff members in the Bournemouth office. So it really has a special place for us. I've been asked today to talk very briefly about how we responded to COVID-19 as a business. And, you know, I'm going to go through some of the initiatives that we put in place and how we managed it. And then end off with just a sense of where we believe, you know, companies are going to be forced to relook at how they've done things going into the future. And whenever I'm asked, you know, how did we respond, I always use the analogy, you know, you talk about the boiling frog, you know, put the frog in some lukewarm water and turn the temperature up one degree at a time. And I guess that's the way we've always operated. We get used to the current environment, and minor little changes don't really spark the impact. What happened here is we didn't go up just 1 degree every year. We went up about 50 degrees in one day. You know, when you think of it in those terms, the world was really turned on its head. And we had to make sure that we responded in that manner, that, you know, this is something dramatically different. And the future success, not of only our business, but of society, depends on how we actually act. So effectively, before I start, in terms of going through how we did react, I thought it would just be important to take a step back and just give you a sense of how we think about our business, and why we think in this environment, the way we've thought about our business over many, many years is important to how we're reacting. Our business is very, very young. It was started 25 years ago in South Africa. We then moved to the UK with a joint venture with Prudential about 15 years ago. So fairly young in terms of time. But when we launched this business 25 years ago, we really believed in a strong core purpose. And we think it's absolutely critical that businesses have a reason for existing, and not simply just being transactional businesses. And our core purpose is very important to us. And I guess 25 years ago, when we stood up and we told people we want to be different and our purpose is to make people healthy and enhance and protect their lives, there was a lot of skepticism. People were actually thinking, what's this got to do with insurance? And the reality is that we've remained true to that core purpose throughout this period. And we've seen over the years the evolution of how people look at businesses. And especially now, having a very strong why. Why are you in business is critical. How we actually conduct our business is actually quite interesting. We've developed what we call a shared value model. And why do we call it shared value? Because it does exactly that. It very simply is a business that incentivizes people to remain healthy. And that's good for people because they get healthier. We give them incentives so they get rewarded. But it's also very good for us as an insurer. The healthier our clients and members are, the less they claim. The less they claim allows us to actually give them more back in benefits. So it's a virtuous circle of the healthier people are, the better it is for them, the better it is for us, and society is actually a beneficiary. Think about society. If you look at a society that has got healthier people, it has a dramatic impact on productivity, on resources around national health services, etc. So it's actually a win-win for everybody. There are no losers in this model, and everything we do is around how we can share that value. And we actually make no apologies for the fact that we're better off in that world. we're an organization, we actually want to make profits. The more profits we can make, the more we can give back to our members, the more members can contribute to society. So it really works for everyone. And it's almost incidental what we do, whether it's health insurance, life insurance, investments. In the South African market, we've gone into banking, into motor insurance, etc. So the whole realm of what we do is underpinned very much by our core purpose, a very strong why, and our business model. And all our Vitality businesses, whether they're life insurance, health insurance, our recently launched Invest business, are underpinned by a very powerful behavioral change program called Vitality. It's a bit confusing in the UK because the name of our company is also Vitality, but the fundamental differentiator that we have that was launched 25 years ago is also called Vitality. And Vitality is a very sophisticated actuarial clinical behavioral change program that understands that people will change their behavior if it's in their own interests. And the way that you do that is you incentivize people to actually change their behavior. Whilst people will rationally believe that, yes, going for a run, eating healthily, etc., drinking moderately is all good for us. We can all intellectualize that. But we as human beings don't always put it into practice. But when there's some real incentives at play, we have seen over the years what actually shifts the dial is when people will act in their self-interests and they will actually change behavior. And even if they're doing it for their self-interests, it's still good for the whole shared value model. And whilst we believe that we want to create best of breed businesses, whether it's in life insurance, health insurance, or investments, it's absolutely critical that the Vitality program of behavioral change is embedded in all of these products. So that's really just a brief overview of our business model and how we approach the world from that perspective. But more specifically, being asked to say, how did we respond to COVID-19 as a business? And we sat down and we actually thought about this in terms of 4 areas. We said, whatever we do, first and foremost was to protect and support our people. Now is the time to make sure that we keep our employees safe, we maintain connectivity with our employees in this new world, and very importantly, maintain productivity. So that was first and foremost the first thing that we put down. The second was to ensure business continuity, to ensure that our products and services were fit for purpose, and provide support to our partners like our broker community, our advisors, our Vitality partners that we use, and also the service providers in the healthcare system. So that was the second aspect. And the third aspect was to make sure that whatever we did, it was always underpinned by having a positive impact on society. And, I think if one thing has taught us around this pandemic is the move from I to we. I've never seen people more concerned and more galvanized around the betterment of society. And I think that's a great thing and a very, very positive thing, that we've actually seen that people are starting to think about the collective as opposed to the individual. But underpinning all of these 3 issues was something that was very important, was first and foremost to maintain the financial strength and resilience of our business. We are, at the end of the day, an insurance company, and we need to maintain the business's financial strength. And fortunately, in terms of that, we have got significant amount of capital reserves in our business. We've been very prudent in the way that we've managed the business, so we could tick that box. And I think that's an important point, because that obviously builds the foundation for you to deal with the top 3 areas. So let me take you through what we did in terms of each of these. In terms of protecting and supporting our people. Well, the first and foremost thing is, you may recall right in the early days, there was talk about if you've got a COVID a member of staff who's showing symptoms, you've got to call in the Department of Health and they've got to sanitize your building. That lasted about 3 days, that theory. Then we had this whole situation, well, we're actually going to have to, it's so contagious, you simply just can't work in the office environment. And we really, if we looked at what we actually did in a very short space of time, we actually managed to ensure our entire workforce through Stockport, Bournemouth, London, and Croydon actually could perform their functions at home. This was quite a Herculean effort. We only had a certain amount of laptops. As you can imagine, the orders for additional laptops was quite a backlog. So the real challenge was, how are we going to get 2,000 people across the UK in these 4 locations to work at home and not disrupt service? It really was a great effort by the IT team and everybody. And in fact, quite interestingly, we had to, in fact, take some of our desktops, about 725 desktops. And I remember some of the managers in Stockport were joking that they wanted to alert the police so that when people were walking out the building with their desktops, they weren't arrested. So it really and truly was at that point that people were literally walking out of the offices. I was really proud of the work that the team did. We had technology in place that we had invested significantly in prior to this, that allowed us to roll out our frontline staff, enabling them to securely handle customer calls from home. So that was the first thing that we did, was to ensure the safety of our staff, to ensure that they actually remained connected. We then were hard at work, and a lot of the time, if I look back at the past sort of 3 months, one of the biggest, I think, successes has been our ability to communicate, to keep our staff informed, to keep our members informed, and we've really not held back in that regard. We've not left anything unturned in that regard. It's from basic information to giving people tips on how they can work from home, well-being at home, managing teams remotely. This was a whole new world for us. And we looked at supplementing the tools that we give our staff. So we gave people free access to complete virtual schooling, free access to online support and advice for parents, free access to supplementary online mental health support. So whatever our staff felt they needed, we resourced it immediately and actually gave it to them. The workplace wellbeing team, we've got a brilliant team at Vitality, and in normal work practices, what they do is they go out to our corporate clients, our SMEs, a 30, 40 man SME scheme, or up to 1,000 members, or whatever the case is, and they actually go on site and talk about well-being in the workplace. And this team, within a matter of days, had actually adapted their entire modus operandi to actually continue the work they did virtually. And we actually started rolling this out, obviously, to our own staff. So there were these blogs, there were these tips, there were Mindful Mondays and wellness workshops, high-intensity training classes, beginner workouts at home, whatever they are. And we were attended by about, to date, over 500 employees have actually taken advantage of this. So we continue to do that, but also, very importantly, a lesson that we learned, you've got to keep it fresh. You've got to keep on evolving, because, it's a very, very different environment. The one thing that we also learned was that our people managers had no experience in how do you manage a workforce virtually. So things that we would ordinarily not have to think about, we now suddenly had to think about. So what the team did is they started the daily manager me time, where it was a 15-minute daily drop-in at 8:45 every morning, sort of just to give a group-wide leadership community feel, helping managers reset, reframe, refocus, and just share ideas. And I think that whole concept of people just sharing best practice became a very, very important sort of new business as usual. We created online learning resources on leadership. We created confidential counseling available to executives. So we really did not hold back in assisting our members. our staff members. We now are in the planning phase to get people back to work. Sometimes I actually think it's more difficult getting people back to work than actually getting them to work from home. But what we've done is we also want to make sure that our staff members feel absolutely safe. It was quite interesting. We did a survey to find out what the sentiment of the staff would be about coming back to work, and 52% of them actually said they're concerned about coming back for their own personal safety. The other half were comfortable to come back to work. Of the 52%, obviously there was quite a large portion who were quite worried about schooling and how they would have to adapt. So we made a conscious decision that the fact we can actually get our staff members to work from home is something that we will continue. It will be completely voluntary for people who want to come back to work. We've actually had a lot of people requesting they want to come back to work. You know, they're obviously feeling the pressure of a very enclosed environment where it's not that conducive from a productivity point of view to be in a one-bedroom flat with no balcony, for example. So we've ordered thermal imaging systems. We've got face masks, which we obviously will be posting out. In fact, next week we're going to be posting out, and I've asked the team to post out 5 per family. So every staff member will get 5 of these. Obviously, they clothable, reusable cloth face masks, but also that they can actually give their family members. Doesn't help them being safe with a face mask and not their family members. And then we've stocking all our offices with hand sanitizers and doing all the rest of the health and safety work. But it's something we're taking very seriously in terms of the safety of our members. Moving on to our clients and partners. What was actually very interesting in the first instance was we were also faced over and above the fact that we now had to get our workforce to work from home. We were also faced with the sort of unprecedented world of the NHS taking over private hospitals. So suddenly, one day, you know, a big part of our business is obviously paying for elective surgery in private hospitals. And now that was not going to be possible. So we sat down and we said, we've got to continue to show value. We are in a fortunate position relative to our competitors because the Vitality program itself gives back tremendous value to members. So they don't just join us because they're waiting for that operation. They join us because of the benefits of a healthy lifestyle. So we were already ahead of the game there. But we also wanted to make sure that when it came to clinical care, our members, our clients were actually looked after. So we actually did some really interesting things, and this was quite interesting. Normally, just to give you a sense of a product development cycle in our business, is normally at least a 9 to 6 month process. You think about the idea, you think about the implications, you then go through a whole product development, research and development process, speak to prospective clients, and then the difficult work starts. When you get the product right, you've got to actually build the systems. And then you've got to work out how does it affect everybody. We insure 1.3 million lives in the UK. So everything we do has a knock-on impact. Well, I can tell you within 2 weeks, we turned around these products. And that was just an amazing, amazing example of people can actually achieve greatness. They can actually it's all in their mind. We didn't have a choice. So what we did is we launched a cashback benefit that actually pays back people a cashback benefit even if they go into the NHS. I can tell you this has been well utilized, especially in the first 2-3 months. We paid back a significant amount of our members who actually were hospitalized on ventilators, have come back. So we launched that on the 20th of March, literally within that week. We increased our availability of our virtual GP services. That increased utilization by nearly 300%. We actually saw a lot of people using our Vitality GP app, our Vitality GP advice line. We also fast-tracked the launch of our member care hub, which allowed people to access physiotherapy, mental well-being modules, and virtual consultations with specialists as well. So it was really another one of those examples that I'll look back on and say, you know, is this the new norm? My team gets a bit upset when I say, okay, what are we launching next? We've got 2 weeks to do it. They don't see the humor in that anymore. But people literally almost killed themselves to get this over the line. But the benefits of it were so powerful. And then we really had a major challenge. Think about our Vitality program. Our Vitality program is based on the premise that people go out, they go into gyms, they go out and exercise, they earn Vitality points, and they get rewarded for these. What are the rewards? Well, the rewards, what we call active rewards, is if you do a certain number of steps in 1 week, you can get a free coffee the next week, or you can get a cinema ticket, or the likes thereof. And now suddenly, cinemas were closed, and our partner, Cafe Nero, as our coffee partner, was also closed. Gyms were closed. So now what? So instead of just sitting back and hoping that things would happen, the team actually started doing some tremendous work. And this was also another great example of just drive, tenacity, and urgency from our team. We partnered that within 2 weeks with Peloton, so people could record training sessions at home. You know, one of our ambassadors is Jessica Ennis-Hill. She's got a virtual app for fitness. We linked the points earning capability to that. We gave people significant discounts of selected devices so they didn't have to, you know, go into a formal training setting. We also then said we've got a healthy food benefit where people have to earn a certain amount of points and they can get up to 25 to 40% of their healthy food purchases from Waitrose. We said, regardless of your activity, we understand people are going to find difficulty in earning those points. So everybody, regardless of your activity, will get 25 to 40% back. And then probably the most impressive part was how are we going to continue incentivizing people? Because this is a key component of behavioral change. So instead of going to the movies, which you can't do because they closed, or to the coffee shops, we created rewards at home. And we did a deal with Rakuten TV where people could earn up to 2 movies a week on the same basis. Just to give you a sense, the average movie there costs about £4.90, some go up to £10. So it was really a valuable benefit for people. So they could get free movies. And we sat down with Cafe Nero, and this was quite amazing. Instead of people going to get their coffee, we sent people their coffee. Now, we didn't send them in the ready-made cups. We sent them either ground coffee in the Cafe Nero ground coffee bags, or capsules. So we adapted our business model for the times. And I think that was a tremendous effort. The other one, which is also very, which I'm very proud of, that the team did, is part of being on Vitality, is that you almost get your own sort of MOT. We call it the Vitality Health Check. So, you know, we always are so obsessed, and we forced, I guess, by law to always check that our motor vehicle is roadworthy every year. But how often do we check that we're roadworthy as individuals? So we created something called the Vitality Check, which is a basic biometric check to see, you know, are you presenting with symptoms? Prevention is better than cure. We have a deal with Lloyd's Pharmacy Group, and essentially people go in there, they get a full report, and then if there is a problem, it gets triaged up into a larger, more comprehensive health check. But Lloyd's Pharmacy couldn't fulfill for us anymore. So what did the team do? We created the Vitality Health Check at home. What happens is you book a health check, you get sent a package, and there's a virtual consultation with a nurse who actually helps you take some blood with a little droplet, and then you post it back and you get your results. So this was another example of how we adapted to the environment. And as I said, communication is absolutely critical. So communication for our staff was critical, but equally importantly, communication for our clients. And I was sending messages every single time there was a benefit change. We gave our members FAQs on the virus. We really saw a surge in people actually responding to this. We also created, soon after the lockdown, a Vitality at Home Instagram series, where we used our ambassadors, Myra Toja, Jessica Ennis-Hill, Johnny Wilkinson, for our members to actually do virtual things with them at the ambassadors' homes. That was so successful that we actually put it into a Vitality at Home television ad. So we really did leverage all the power of everything, and the response we got from this, was absolutely overwhelming. We also have combined our expertise with our other partners. So we looked at opportunities of how we could leverage our partnership with Waitrose, for example. So we've joined up with Waitrose to give wellness workshops. It's called Wellness Wednesdays. So this powerful collaboration aims to address some of these undesirable effects of a lockdown. So we really are pleased that we've actually used this as an opportunity to leverage every single aspect around our staff, our clients, our partners. So that's really just hopefully given you a snapshot of how we adapted from a COVID perspective. But what this has led us to look at is that I think that what COVID-19 has done has brought about a lot of challenges to the way businesses view health and well-being, especially at work. And this is a very, very important aspect from us going forward. Health and well-being has never been more important. We know that lockdown and remote working have had a detrimental impact on health. Businesses are searching for new ways to engage a remote and diversified workforce. And I think that point is very, very clear. As I said, we've seen that half our workforce wants to, in some form or other, continue to work from home. And we would welcome that. It gives us a new way of working, but how are we going to engage with them to keep them engaged in the business, to keep the culture going? So there are all of these challenges. And I think also, very importantly, we've spoken a bit about this, but there's a clear imperative for businesses to place societal outcomes, including employee well-being, at the top of the strategic agenda. It's no longer just about me, it's about we. So with those three things in mind, we really are thinking at the moment of how best could we as Vitality, as a health insurer, life insurer, business, how could we assist businesses in this new world? So just to give you a sense, and I mean, I know the slides and the next few slides are quite busy. We are very much a data-driven business. We have a team of about 15 data scientists who look at every single bit of behavior, every single bit of information. We analyze this data, and we use the data to inform decisions going forward. What we do is we run a survey every year called Britain's Healthiest Workplace, where we ask organizations to give us a sense of what they contribute to the workplace wellness. And we also then ask individual employees of those organizations a whole host of issues around job satisfaction, nutrition, sleep, physical activity, etc. And all of these results actually are quite telling in terms of companies and how well they position, or how poorly rather they position in terms of workplace wellness. And you can see that there's a significant productivity loss when you go through the lifestyle risk factors. You can actually see on the right-hand graph the additional days lost from a productivity point from your employees through poor nutrition, insufficient sleep, insufficient physical activity, and a combination of those. And if we actually look at corporate Britain as an organization, we actually only start working around about the middle of February. If you take all those productivity lost days in our workforce, the country actually only starts working. We're losing about 30 days a year to lost productivity, 30 working days. The second interesting thing is that COVID, we have seen, is as an infectious disease, has heightened our awareness of the same health risks that lead to sickness, lost productivity, and premature deaths in normal times. Once again, a very busy graph, but we look at deaths, preventable, non-preventable, the metabolic factors, which are manageable, the behavioral factors, which are around alcohol, around tobacco, around physical activity. We put all of these together, and what we've come to the conclusion very clearly is that there is growing evidence that you've got a greater increased risk of COVID based on these factors. So people who have got high BMIs, diabetics, these are lifestyle behavioral issues that can be changed by changing people's behavior. So engaging in programs like Vitality can actually reduce your susceptibility to COVID. We've actually got facts from our data on that. I'm not going to go through this slide, but this slide essentially tells us a very interesting story about what we call the step gap. So we know exactly the number of steps that our members have been getting over the last 15 years in the UK. We know and can predict exactly what people are going to be doing in terms of their behavior. What was quite interesting is what we've seen is those people that are very active, they are highly active from a cardio perspective, they actually have started exercising more in lockdown. So they've obviously got more time on their hands doing, they're used to exercising. What we've seen is what we call your everyday athlete, the person who's doing their 10,000 steps a day, but they're getting it from walking from the train to their office, walking around the office, walking downstairs to get something to eat at lunchtime, taking a slow walk around the block. All of those issues have now changed. And what we've seen is that those people that were doing the sort of baseline activity have actually reduced their activity levels. So they've actually started doing less. And we've now had to actually look at modeling these sort of lifestyle risk factors around how are we going to make sure that those people who don't go back to work, who start working from home, get back to that, what we call the normal activity levels that they were exhibiting beforehand. So with all of that information, we really needed to try and look at how we could assist companies in terms of how they can manage their workforce from a physical and a mental well-being perspective post the pandemic. And some employers have got a significantly increased level of stress and anxiety, as you can imagine, post-lockdown versus pre-lockdown. And organizations and employers have got to be cognizant of this. It's not just simply opening up your doors to your office and everything's going to be back to normal. So that is something that we've been hard at work focusing on. We also are looking at data that tells us that employers are searching for new ways of how we can get people back into the workforce, but with all these uncertainties. And I've told you a lot about the data, but what we're doing on a regular basis is through our website, is we're doing what we call these pulse surveys, 2 or 3 questions every now and then, and we're getting a whole slew of this data that's actually informing our decisions. The willingness to return, you won't be surprised that 69% would only really be willing to return when there's a vaccine. 42% are willing to return if they've had an antibody test. Social distancing, reconfigured workspaces, limited number of employees in the office. 53% of people are saying they would only be comfortable coming back to work in those circumstances. Closed communal spaces. So there's a whole lot of these factors that are important in this. And the third one, which I just want to deal with, is, never before has it been more important for business to have a positive impact on society. Whatever you read, the New York Times, the Economist, what are companies for? There was a great article around big business, about shareholders, about society. There was the CEO of the Bank of America said, you can provide great returns for your shareholders and great benefits for your employees and run your business in a responsible way. That talks to our shared value model. You can do all of these things and be a benefit to society. And, I constantly challenge our team in every single thing that we do. What is the impact going to be on society? So this is also forefront of our mind. So when we put all of these together, what we're doing is we are re-looking at our one product, which is called Vitality at Work. Vitality at Work essentially is a combination of assisting businesses where we analyze their physical, mental, lifestyle, work factors. We look at how we can improve those within the business. And very importantly, track and monitor and actually give employers good data on what their risks are. From an employee level, it's the Vitality program, which is very simple. Understand your health, improve your health, get rewarded. And over and above this, we do think that issues like virtual GP, employee support services on the clinical side, especially around mental well-being, will become more and more important. So we are uniquely positioned to leverage our assets and skills in this regard. And my sense is that organizations are going to be starting to put wellness at the front of the agenda. You think about it, what are people worried about? They're worried about wellness. They're worried about healthcare services, health insurance. They're worried about protection for their loved ones, life insurance. And they're worried about retiring in a healthy state. And that talks to investments. And what is our business made up of? Health, life, and investment. So we believe we are well positioned to make sure that we can have an impact on that going forward. So hopefully I've given you a sense of what we've achieved. We're not out, we're not, as the old saying goes, there's no finish line. We're not out, nowhere near the finish line. But we believe that if we continue down this path and guide ourselves in these principles, we'll able to manage and actually thrive in the new environment. So Paul, that's it from the formal presentation perspective.
Neville, thank you so much. I mean, unpack that. There's so much in that. If you could unshare your screen, Neville, that would be great. Yeah. So that we can see everybody. We've already got some questions coming through, as I thought we would. Just to stimulate people's thinking as well, some of the things that I picked up out of that, what's your why? So for any of the people on the webinar today with your business, what's your why? Why is it you do what you do? What is your organization fundamentally about? I thought it was really interesting. A lot of the flow through from that, Neville, was go and meet your clients or your staff where they are, that you reached out to them rather than expecting them to come to you in different ways. The fact that your normal routes to your clients or normal routes to your staff were changed didn't stop you. And I think that's a big lesson for us all in terms of that. And also pace. A number of times through the seminar, you talked about the speed of change and also the speed of reaction or the speed of anticipation from Vitality. And again, I think that's a lesson for all of us in terms of how quickly can we move? How nimble are our businesses? There's a phrase going around at the moment that it's no longer the big eat the small, it's the fast eat the slow. And I think for all of us, the issue of how quickly can we adapt, how can we anticipate what that change will be, and as you have very, very cleverly done, take advantage of that. Some more thoughts maybe towards the end, but let's get into the questions, shall we? Excuse me, I just need to put my reading glasses on here. So our first one is from Julia. I think it's Kalea. I think that's the way to spell it. Or Kalea. Did I get it right, Julia? Great, you're nodding. Thank you. Julie's from Live Well Dorset. And now Neville, she says, will your services extend to outplacement? In other words, to help support staff who've been laid off by companies, because this is going to be a huge societal problem. And I suppose it's an extension of your reaching out to customers and clients. So have you got plans or thought about extending your services to those people who've been laid off to support staff who've been laid off?
I mean, it's a very good question. I mean, our business model is very much around, you can take a policy with us as an individual and then enjoy all the benefits attached with that. Or you can become a member of Vitality through your employment. Now, obviously, if you've been laid off, it presents a problem in both those circumstances. Very much around the fact that, you don't enjoy your company providing private medical insurance, or you may have, and probably you'll have, an affordability problem to fund your own. So, whilst there is definitely a need to do that, it is a difficult position for us to actually do that. So we don't have anything, but it's, once again, what can we do from a societal perspective, in terms of trying to assist and help society. We do try and extend this beyond, obviously, our members into the bigger community. So we do run things with our sponsorship of netball, back to basics, back to grassroots netball, and we're quite active in that space. The community work, obviously, we do with Bournemouth as well. In terms of it's all about getting people active, and there's such a huge sort of symbiotic relationship between physical activity and mental well-being. So sadly, there's no formal program that, if I'm understanding the question.
Thanks, Noel. That's great. I mean, it touches again on that point you made about societal responsibilities for organisations, especially if you look at the news today, where the economy in April, GDP dropped 20%. So there's going to be some fairly major issues, I think, going forward. Going forward from that, actually, Neville, there's an interesting question from Fraser here, from AFC Bournemouth, who says, could Vitality continue to operate with employees working from home in the long term? So I suppose there's an interesting question here about, do you see this change as being a permanent shift in work culture? And he also goes on to say, do you think this could actually benefit the company in terms of cost?
So we definitely, I do believe we can, but also, every now and then, just want to put a cold towel on my leadership's faces, just to, working from home when you've got no choice but to be at home is very different to working from home when you can actually, go out and actually participate in any activity. So we've got to be very careful not to model our future completely on the last sort of 3 months, because those are not realistic circumstances. We already had a few cohorts of people who work from home, but what worries me about just a blanket everybody work from home is, especially in certain areas, you need that, people who think that we do product development and make big decisions in boardrooms are completely wrong. They're made on aeroplanes sitting next to one of your colleagues, or in the corridors, or in a coffee shop. That's where the real game-changing stuff actually really takes place. So you don't want to lose that. So we are definitely looking at options where people would, work from home, but they would have to come into the office. It's very complicated, but there is no doubt we're not going to take more office space. We're an expanding organization, and what's quite interesting in the planning phase is that even though we're only going to allow 25% of people back in terms of coming back into the office, with social distancing, you can't really get much more than 40-50% back, if you think about it, because you can't have people that close to each other. So the answer to the question is, it will be different, but I don't think we can just blanketly just say, we've got 2,000 people working from home, we don't need any more premises. It would be lovely for us as a business, There is something about the vibe that actually happens, then we're humans and we need that interaction, that personal interaction. And then the last thing really just to say is that it's also very much dependent on the type of functionality here. We've got what we call the R&D, research and development lab. We put all these young, smart actuaries into a room and they've got to share ideas. Very difficult to do that from home. But the irony is people who are on the call centers and are actually servicing clients from home have got a lot less distraction and a lot less noise around them. So they actually do potentially give a better service. So I think a lot of it is the ability to measure productivity, the ability to measure the people's mental and physical well-being state. And how do we adapt and make sure that, there's certain things around ergonomics. We gave all our staff members a chair allowance of a certain amount of pounds because, you think about it, some people were sitting on their beds in their one-bedroom flat with their laptop. You can't do that for 8 hours without having some form of physical or mental effect. So, we would make sure if we're going to work from home, making sure we're getting the right work furniture in place. Is your place conducive for this? In terms of working from home. So there's a lot of complications, but it will change the world.
Thank you, Neville. And we've got one question now, and if anybody's got a final question after this, can you get it through to Aisha really quick, because we're coming to the end of our time together. It leads on incredibly well from that answer that you just gave to the previous question, Neville, which is this. So Richard Farrant from Axis House says, if you're adopting a more flexible approach to staff coming into your offices, whether that's through enforcement or choice, given what you've just said, how does that affect your view of office space or retail estate costs in terms of the business going forward? And I'm assuming with that, he also says you can create a more dynamic office space where staff still want to meet and, importantly, keep the culture of the company up. Sort of thoughts and comments on that, please.
I think it's an excellent question. It's spot on. It's exactly what we're doing at the moment, is a lot more collaboration areas. So, looking at reconfiguring the office space is something that we actually are analyzing at the moment. So it's absolutely, I do believe that it is going to be different, the reconfiguration of that. In terms of office space, there's no doubt. There are going to be, I believe, a lot of landlords out there looking for tenants. So, from our perspective, as we've expanded, we've outgrown our building. This has happened almost fortuitously in a way that, looking at more office space is now not actually on the agenda. It's looking at how do we reconfigure the office to make it more conducive, and how do we make sure we get the right work from home coming into the office balance. So absolutely critical and spot on in terms of the way that we're thinking about it.
And I suppose to finish with, Neville, just very briefly, almost in a very single sentence, what have you learnt about you or the business in the past sort of 10 or 11 weeks? What's the biggest thing that you've kind of taken away or will take away from what's happened in the past 10 weeks, and obviously in terms of what's going to happen differently going forward?
I think from a people perspective, I've always known it, and I've always felt that people can actually achieve whatever they want to achieve and put their minds to it. I think what this has done is it's demonstrated that. We have seen significant, significantly great things happening from just ordinary people in our organization. And just the irony of it is I've never communicated more. At least once every 2 or 3 weeks, I actually do a session to 2,000 people, and I give them an update. So I think going forward, that has to be the new norm. Previously, I went around the country twice a year to speak to staff in massive town halls. And we still, just the logistics of organizing that and the travel and taking people, off the call centers to come and listen to me in a town hall in Stockport or in the Bournemouth Convention Centre is, so I've learned a lot more about how better to communicate with our people. I've learned that, people are resilient, and that they can actually, I've always said people are their own limitation. They create their boundaries of what they can do. And I think this has broken it. On the other level, you've also seen how vulnerable people are, and I've learned a lot about different people and how to manage them differently in lockdown. And I'm talking more at sort of very senior leadership team. I've got an executive committee of 15 people. We're meeting every single day for the first month for 2 hours. It was almost like a war room, going through all of these. And I saw how some of them reacted to that. Now it's come down to be meeting twice a week. Our norm is actually once a week. I think we're ready to go back to that once a week, because there's a time to micromanage. There's a time to actually, let the people get on with it. So it's been very interesting for me from a human behavioral perspective. And that's what I love about my role, is it's about people and getting the best out of people. And it's about teams. I always say to people, surround yourself with the very best people. It will make you look fantastic, and you don't have to be worried. Often people, I think, are threatened by actually employing people better than themselves. I've got one very simple philosophy: employ somebody who's better than you, because they'll make you look good, and it will just be, the collective is just so much more powerful. And that's come to the fore more and more. And we've actually seen that in spades.
Ladies and gentlemen, I know you're all on mute and it's a Zoom thing, but considering that we waved when we came in and we wave when we go out, I think we should give Neville a visual round of applause for that, because that was just superb. Neville, thank you very much indeed.
Appreciate it, and thank you for your time.
Adapt. Messages from Neville's and the questions. We have to adapt. How can we, in our businesses, adapt to this changing nature and anticipate? I think the value of partnerships. Jeff talked about it right at the beginning, the importance of the partnership between AFC Bournemouth and Vitality. It's more than just sponsorship. It is true partnership. And in going forward, I think partnerships will be hugely important in that. How many have you got? How many do you need? What kind of partnerships could you develop for mutual benefit? I was really overwhelmed, Neville, about the reliance and the excellent way in which you get data. So you're not just making decisions on the hoof, but purely by instinct, but that data drives your business decisions, both for your staff and your customers, and in the sense of developing products and services. But the overwhelming thing for me, both not in terms of the presentation, but the answer to your last question, was this desire to engage with your staff, to engage with your senior team, to engage with your customers in ways in which everybody benefits from that as well, and it being most effective. Thank you for today. Thank you for engaging with us. We've got a lot to take away in terms of thinking about from there, Neville. Just to finish with, next webinar details will be out shortly. Make sure that you interact on LinkedIn with AFC Business, and also you have a look at, keep in touch with the AFC Business site. And one of the things that the team here at AFC Business are really interested in are topics that you would like to see covered in these series of webinars that we do. We've got some great ideas from the team that are coming through, but it's really important that we're addressing issues or topics that will be of real benefit to you. So if you've got any ideas for topics that you'd really like to see covered, then if you can get in touch with Aisha or with Amy or with Rob or any of the team at AFC Bournemouth, we'd be really interested to hear what those suggestions are. Sarah Rickson from Summers Insurance won the signed football last time. So we'll be getting in touch with you in the follow-up email that will contain dates and so forth from the following webinars as to say who's won this particular football. Just want to say a few thank yous. Again, thank you, Neville and Vitality UK, both for your presentation today and for your continued support of AFC Bournemouth. And thank you to Jeff for joining us as well. Jeff, thank you very much indeed. The official partners for AFC Business, the Bournemouth Chamber of Trade and Commerce, Dorset Chamber, Dorset Search and Rescue, Global Reach, Hill Osborne, and Strategic Solutions. Thank you to them for your support. That's kind of it. Go and have a great day. Have a great weekend. And if nothing else from today, go find your why. Go find why it is you do what you do, and go find out what the why of your business is. Because if you know that, you'll be able to communicate that to your staff and to your customers, who will understand more effectively what you do. Guys, have a great weekend. Thanks to everybody who's joined today from AFC Business, and we'll see you very soon. Thanks very much indeed.